Whenever people say to you, or they say to me a lot, there just isn't enough diversity, and you're getting caught out by all these extreme right-wing conspiracy theories, just show them this video here. And I want you to bear in mind, this was just one party, one street party of many that took place all around the UK. This was celebrating Pakistani Independence Day. And look, I'm all for a good celebration, I really am. But what is being said about this whole thing and what has actually taken place is shocking to me. Because if that was a British protest, shall we say, they even blocked a single vehicle, let alone loads of vehicles and the streets, I can just imagine the response from the police and the council and other bodies. But what I really found unusual about these events, and by the way, this is just one country, this is Pakistan, but we've seen these events and these parties for over a dozen different countries, and they're always a huge turnout as we navigate these hills here. But what I found interesting about that was that the councils actually not only said, yeah, it's fine, but they also facilitated it and they funded a lot of these events, these parties. Now, bear with me a moment, bear with me, I am coming to a point here. The reason I found this very unusual, because just the day before, I had read all of these stories about how the Union flags and the English flags are about to be taken down right throughout the different cities that they have been put up by patriots wanting to kind of rekindle what we seem to have lost. And I'll tell you about that in a moment as to what has actually taken place, because this was shocking to me, especially what Birmingham City Council did. But if you think about some of the religious festivals that used to be promoted throughout the different cities in the UK, and we can give examples of Good Friday and Easter and Pentecost and Ash Wednesday, and I could go on. These are not promoted anymore because they don't want, it's not in keeping with the diversity and inclusion plan. But yet, what I did find very bizarre was the image of the library, huge, absolutely beautiful library, was lit up with the Pakistani flag. But would it be lit up with the English flag? I've certainly never seen it, let's just say that. But I certainly have seen the library lit up with the Pride flag. I've seen it lit up with the Diwali flag and a couple of others. But yet, I've never seen it lit up with a crucifix or anything to symbolize Christian holidays, which I find very unusual, until you read the part where the mayor of Birmingham, whilst very happy, lowered the flag that was on the council building to raise the Pakistani flag for the event. Now, I've got to tell you about what actually took place with the rest of this situation then in Birmingham. So there has been a very patriotic outpouring in Birmingham in particular, but most cities now, where people have started to put up flags. You know, the Union flag has gone up, the English flag has gone up, all over the place, people's houses. They've been putting them on lampposts, they've been putting them everywhere, and it's a beautiful sight, it's very patriotic. And it's worrying to me that so many mayors and councillors have come out and said that this is a racist attack on the minority community groups in our city, and they feel not just offended by it, but they feel victimised by it. Now, firstly, if you feel victimised and offended by a flag of the country that you are now living in, it probably says that you're in that country for some of the wrong reasons. Certainly not to assimilate and to take on all of those values if you're so offended by the flag which represents those values. And this is where it gets even worse, Birmingham City Council have taken the decision to take down all of these flags. They are passing this at the moment. I don't know how exactly they're going to do it, whether it will be a law or what, but they have already started sending out crews to remove these flags, and they've cited them as dangerous. But here's the question. These flags, if you actually watch some of the videos, that they actually replaced the Palestinian flag that was flying on a lot of these lampposts and a lot of these other places since way back to 2023. So why would those flags okay and not dangerous, but the English flag or the British flag is considered dangerous? There is no explanation, as usual with these politicians. But they did put out a statement, and the statement, I'll paraphrase, saying that 30% of the people in the streets where these flags are Muslim. So they actually stated that. They stated a religion, a faith as a fact, and they said that the people there are Muslim. And that's why the flags were not appropriate for that area. But what I'd ask is, what are the other 70% of people that live there? And what has being Muslim got to do with the English or the British flag? That is a religion. It is not a geography. It's like saying you are Christian, like I am Christian. You may say I am whatever other religion. You could say I'm Sikh, I'm Jewish, I'm whatever. What on earth has that got to do with the country you live in and the flag? The council then doubled down and stated that the flags were installed by non-approved contractors. I think that makes it even worse, that they've actually been paying contractors to put up these flags in the first place that people didn't want up. People are getting fed up of all of this political ideologies and all these, pushing you to be one way or another. That before they wanted to push you, they were trying to do the division with LGBT. Now they're trying to push all the, the migration and the Muslim versus Christian and Muslim versus Jew, and they're just trying to push so much now, and they're deliberately facilitating a lot of this, I believe. And I'll answer a question that someone asked me. I think it was last week. Someone asked me a question. Neil, why don't we, as a country, just leave the European Council or the Convention of Human Rights, the ECHR? So I will answer that question a little bit later in this video, but it's a bizarre reason, and I think it will shock you. Gosh, look at these views today. Absolutely breathtaking. The colours are so vivid. Now, moving on to the next story. Do you remember this guy here from last year, who everyone said, wow, he is going to prison for years, a very long time? Well, I always said I doubt it, because he's a Labour councillor. Yes, the current government, Labour, he is one of their councillors. Do you know what he said? It wasn't a post like, hey, we don't like immigrants in this country, prison. Hey, we don't like this, prison. Hey, you police, if you're standing with these people, you're prison. Right? It wasn't, something like that. He actually said something extreme. He called the protesters far-right, Nazi, fascist, and he said that they should all have their throats. Hold on, let me do the hand action here. This, because we're on YouTube. That's what he said. He said that on a loudspeaker during a protest, okay? You can't make this stuff up. Well, do you know what happened at the trial? I just don't think you're going to believe this. But before I tell you what happened at the trial, because it absolutely shocked me, I've got to say that right now in the UK, we are sliding, and we are sliding fast. We're sliding ideologically, financially, and politically into the abyss. We really are. We've also got soaring taxes. We've got an incompetent government. We have freedoms being eroded away by the day under the Online Safety Act, which is a cover. Oh, it's protecting children. Yeah. It's a cover to stop you saying anything the government doesn't like. Not to mention your money in the bank being eroded away all the time by these central bank and monetary decisions, these political decisions, with all these soaring taxes, with even more taxes on the way they've just announced this week, potentially even higher levels of inheritance tax. I couldn't believe one reporter actually said that we need a 100% inheritance tax, and that when someone passes away, the children shouldn't get anything, or the relatives as well shouldn't get anything. It should 100% go to the state. These people are crazy. They are absolutely crazy. And history is very clear as to what happens next. I think most of you know this. They not only devalue the currency by creating more, they then start to raid your pensions, they raid your savings, they do more taxes, and they slowly erode your savings away, which is what happened. People lost as much as 20% of their savings during the sort of lockdown period and those 2 years after, without even realizing it, because inflation isn't taught in schools. So when inflation was running at 10-12%, that means that the value of your money in the bank has just dropped in terms of purchasing power by that amount. And that is how they steal from you. And that's why I invest in a number of things. I'm very diversified, but one of those things is in gold and silver. And I've been doing it for over 20 years, I think even 25 years now, investing in gold and silver. And I don't just mean buying a coin and putting it under my mattress, which is the very simple way of doing it. There's a lot of ways, even very advanced strategies, that you can do to secure your money. And I highly recommend considering that. And that's why I created a course on gold and silver investing, because so many people were asking the same question, having the same challenge as to how you actually do it without getting scammed or without getting robbed with these ridiculous premiums and buying the wrong coins. And how do you actually do it? Do you buy bars so you get better value? Do you store it at home? Do you store it in these vaults? Which country vaults? How do you move it? How do I take some of the money in my pension and turn that into physical gold and silver? How do I trade it? I basically took everything and made a huge course. I don't know how long it is. It could be 30 hours long, not to put you off, because of course pick and choose what you think is best from the course and study the bits that are most important to you. But my point is here that I highly recommend you do something. Don't just leave all your money in the bank or your pension with the government or some of these plans, because if you've seen any of my documentaries on this, there is nothing left in the pensions. Don't take my word for it. Check this for yourself. These pension plans are going to be empty within the next few years. That's what the government says. That's not me saying it. That's what the government says. Some of these pension plans are already empty. So our economies are heading for a reckoning. It's just a matter of time. It is coming. The question is whether you're going to be on the right side of this, however you do it. I mean, I don't mind how you do it. I just want to make sure that you are on the right side of it when all of this actually hits. So if you've been waiting for the right time to secure your money, your savings, your pension, whatever it is, this is probably a good opportunity, and to really encourage you to actually look at the information page below. It's in the description or the pinned comment here. I'll even give you a 90% off coupon for today to accompany this video, because I really do want you to actually take control of this before all of these issues really hit. If you think they've hit hard already, you haven't seen anything yet. Now, coming back to this Labour councillor then, Ricky Jones, I've got to tell you what happened. I was reading some of the court stuff here. Okay, so he was cleared of encouraging disorder after he called out Southport rioters for being disgusting Nazi fascists. Okay, we've got to break this statement down a little bit, because this is pretty much what the articles all said. It was very coordinated how they all put out the same thing. So we've got to go into the linguistics of that, which is the study of language is linguistics. We've got to look at this. We've got to break down the language used in these sentences here. So let's look at the first thing then. He actually didn't call them out. he didn't call them out for being that, which is how they've reported on it. So they're acting as if that these people were what he said, right? That's how you would read the statement. They actually were that, and he was just calling them out for being that. That's not what happened. This was a peaceful protest in Southport. Yes, there was some people rioting, but the media only focus on that tiny 0.1% just so that they can weaponize you, the people, against the greater majority of peaceful protesters. So that's actually what took place there. So the question is, how did he get cleared of this offense? That they said actually he didn't, it wasn't offensive. What he said wasn't in any way dangerous. He wasn't trying to encourage disorder. They basically dismissed everything. He completely got away with all of it. And you've got to ask, how is that possible? How on earth could that be possible when that man who said to the police officer, in fact, sorry, let me correct that. He said it to he was shouting at the Migrant hotel, F off back to where you came from. Okay, that's basically what he said. And he got, was it 6 months in prison, or was it 4 months? It was several months anyway for that. So you've got to ask yourself, how can one man get put in prison for shouting something like that, but then this Labour councillor who's supposed to lead the way as a political figure says something extreme regarding slitting people's, and then he gets off with absolutely nothing. That is the problem, ladies and gents. They're now telling us that up is really down, down is really up, left is really right, and right is left. And if you don't go along with this, then there's something wrong with you. I think in 1984 it was called Newspeak, wasn't it? I think it was something like that, how they described it. And by the way, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. I think you'll enjoy these videos each time they come out. Now, there was another story that I was reading today. This was Crick Village. It's a village in England. They are losing their minds at the moment. And they're actually getting quite desperate in this situation. They have called for a curfew over the illegal migrants in the hotel in the village. Oops, did I just use some accurate language there? I should have actually said asylum seekers so I can be politically correct. Indeed, indeed. Well, these men have been housed in the local Ibis hotel. And by the way, whenever you hear which brand of hotel actually is putting people up, these people up, what I do is I boycott those brands. I don't go to those brands at all, because in my mind, this might be an extreme view, but this is my opinion, they are actually facilitating the crimes that are taking place, because they are housing people, and in fact they're robbing us twice in a way because of the crime aspect, but they're also taking taxpayer money, your taxes, to actually facilitate some of the crime that is taking place. So this hotel's got 111 rooms. It's so weird how they focus a lot of these stories on 111, 222, 333, right? All this weird stuff in all these stories. But they've got 111 rooms, and these guys are just causing chaos in the village. Just chaos. So the local villagers are too scared to go out after dark, and they're asking for a curfew, but the local council is saying we can't do anything about it because the government have put them in there against our will. We tried to stop it and we couldn't. We had no power to stop it. And now this beautiful sleepy little village has actually got a real issue, because people are starting to leave. People are starting to sell their homes and move away because they don't want to be surrounded by that. And why should you? If you work hard all your life and you retire and you spend, I mean, it's not cheap living in a village. It's not cheap at all. So if you actually spend your money, you save up and you buy a nice house in a village, you don't want to live around that. I'm sorry. I know some of the lefties watching will say, oh, that's so offensive to me. I am so offended, Neil. Well, sorry, too bad. That's the beauty of freedom of speech, I'm afraid, which I know some people want to get rid of completely. But you know, some of the other just to give you a couple of examples, there was a little boy with a football. He went to the local park and they stole his football from him. And you might say, oh, well, that's just a minor thing, Neil, that's minor. I'm sure people will say, that's just minor though. Okay, they stole his football, no big deal. Well, actually, it is a big deal. You imagine the impact on that little boy. I remember when I was a kid and someone stole my bike, and I'd only just got this bike. I think I'd had it a couple of months for Christmas, and some group of guys, older guys, I was probably, I don't even know how old I was, 8, 9, 10, because you could play on your own back then with your friends and cycle around and stuff. And it was a BMX. So this group of teenagers stole it from me, and it affected me for years. Years it bothered me. I was always very protective of my stuff at that point. But anyway, I digress. This isn't a therapy session here. But the other thing they've been doing, I was reading some of the other things, is they've been getting on the bus and refusing to pay the bus fare, saying, no, we're not paying. And they would just sit down, and then the bus couldn't move until they paid, and they just refused, or they got into fights with the bus driver or other passengers. And again, we shouldn't be living with all of this stuff. It's just not a nice existence. Now, I said I'd answer the question around the ECHR, because I get asked this a lot. And that is, Neil, why can't we leave the European Convention, people often say core, it's Convention of Human Rights. And there's actually a lot of very intricate, complicated reasons why the UK can't leave it. And I'll tell you, it's very, very difficult. Now, the first reason, which most people don't know, is that the ECHR is not part of the European Union. Yes, you did just hear me say that correctly. The ECHR is not part of the European Union. It's not governed by the European Council. It's actually part of something called the Council of Europe, which sounds like the European Council or sounds like the EU. It's nothing to do with either. And this is where it gets very dark, and you start looking at, where did this come from in the first place? So this is why they couldn't touch it when they did Brexit, because it was not part of the EU in the first place. And they also say that they can't leave because if they did, Scotland could call for independence. It's somehow written into some sort of law with Scotland being part of the UK. So that explains a lot as well. The other serious thing is that to be a member of Europe, which this one makes me laugh, to be a member of Europe, you have to sign up to this ECHR. The only two countries that won't sign up to it is Russia and Belarus. So they are not part of Europe, according to this legislation. And they actually threatened the UK, who wanted to leave the ECHR when they did Brexit. They actually threatened the UK and said, if you leave the ECHR, you are no longer part of Europe, which doesn't make any sense at all. How can you not be part of Europe when you're in Europe? But it gets worse. It gets worse here. The ECHR actually became part of UK law. It was called the UK Human Rights Act 1998. Guess who brought this in? Guess which Prime Minister? You're not going to be surprised by this. Tony Blair. And his wife Sherry had a lot to do with that. So they actually wrote it into the UK law so that it's almost impossible to actually get out of. Oh wait, I'm not done. It gets even worse. So I'm going to have to read this part out. So repealing it, so withdrawing from the ECHR, would mean rewriting large chunks of British law. This would affect policing, the courts, immigration policy, military rules of engagement, and so many other things. They say it's so difficult that it would make Brexit look like a walk in the park. Truly, truly. But the last thing they said, which again makes no sense and is obviously not true, is they said if the UK leaves the ECHR, that the US will pull out of any funding and any trade deals with the UK. They would also enact new tariffs on the UK. And I know that's not true, because you look at what's happening in the US. They've actually closed the borders. They're not letting anyone in, and they're removing people. In fact, I just saw today they removed 275,000 people off the Social Security payments. So yeah, don't believe all this nonsense, and of course that is the reason that it's not easy to leave the ECHR. These globalists have obviously written it into law at different ways under their puppets, and that's why we're stuck in this situation. But you don't need to be stuck in a bad situation. Just remember the links below to the gold and silver programs. There's actually two. You can take the foundation or the advanced program, whichever you prefer, or both. You'll get a good saving on the bundle. So with that said then, thank you so much for being a subscriber here. Really appreciate you. Appreciate you, your family, and your prayers and everything else you do on the channel here. Take care. God bless you. God bless you all. And I will see you next time. If you ever want a beautiful walking holiday, come to the Isle of Man. You never know, you might even see me on a path. Also, some people were asking about my kayak. Here it is. It's my kayak. Oh, who's this? Ah, it's Princess the chicken.